Hey, welcome back to At Home Songwriting. I'm Chad Shank, and if you're new here, I am a songwriter, I am a singer-songwriter, I am a songwriting teacher. I teach songwriting for Berklee College of Music Online. I teach lyric writing, and I've also taught commercial songwriting techniques. And I've had this YouTube channel since 2021. And today I want to just kind of talk a little bit. And it's hot outside and it's cool in my basement, and I just took a shower and my glasses keep fogging up. So try to ignore that part of it. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about what I've been up to, and also why does everything have to be for money, right? So what do I mean by this? Well, anytime you make any sort of art, whether that's songwriting, whether that's painting, whether you are a singer, whether you are a sculptor, anytime you make things in our world these days, the first thing people say is you should sell it. And they say, how are you going to sell it? You should send that somewhere. Somebody should buy this, or you should do this. You should start a business. You should do all these things for money. And I think for me personally, it has been not so healthy from a mental health standpoint to look at everything from a how do I monetize this standpoint. So as a kid, I grew up in the 80s. So I was born late 70s, grew up in the 80s. I'm going to be 48 this year. When I was a kid, I used to just love listening to music, and I wanted to make what I heard coming out of the radio and what was coming out of my cassette player, right? So my parents bought me a cassette player, and then every few months we could save up to get, a cassette, which was probably $10 to $15. But back then, that was a pretty big investment for a little kid, right? So I was saving up to get the Pointer Sisters. I was saving up to get Prince, Debbie Gibson, Janet Jackson, a lot of my idols, a lot of the people that I really look up to. And I just loved music, and I spent so much time as a kid in my room playing music over and over and over again. And we didn't necessarily have the same access to music videos, right? Like we had MTV, but you had to be, in the living room watching TV, and you had to actually sort of make an effort to sit down and watch videos. You didn't have access to video in your lap on your phone nonstop. So when I would be in my room listening to music, the music is what gave me the colors. The music is what gave me the pictures in my mind. And the music was an escape. And I miss the innocence of that time, because maybe it was just me as a kid and being naive, but I felt like music was made in order to make people feel happy. And it was made not so much in how do we make the artist and the producers rich. And I know that's super naive, because the artists and the producers were trying to figure out how to make themselves rich. But I'm going to bring this back to how I think a lot of us feel these days, or at least I should say how I feel these days. So, I start listening to cassettes. I start really just listening to music nonstop. And I, at some point, went to my cousin's place in Rapid City, South Dakota, and he had an electronic keyboard. And I discovered that I could make some of the sounds that I was hearing coming out of the cassette player, coming out of the radio. And I wanted one so bad, because it was like this gate had opened in my mind that, oh my gosh, like that's how I can do this, right? Like, how can I make music like I'm hearing coming out of my speakers? So I begged and asked and begged and asked. And my parents, when I was in about third grade, bought me a little Yamaha keyboard. it was a keyboard that you couldn't even play chords on, right? I think you could play like maybe 2 notes at a time. It was not completely polyphonic. But it was the start of me learning how to play what I was hearing by ear. So I was always somebody who didn't necessarily want to follow the normal path, right? I thought the music the band kids were doing and the music in school, I thought that was boring compared to what I was listening to on the radio. Like, I wanted to make the Janet Jackson music. I wanted to make the Prince music. And I started to teach myself through just listening and experimentation on how to mimic what I was hearing. And then I sort of started buying sheet music and indirectly teaching myself music theory. And in this old box of books and old box of junk, my dad actually had this book about playing guitar. And my dad never really played guitar when I was a kid, so I'm not sure where it came from. But there was a one-pager in there that talked about how do you come up with melody notes in chords. And I remember that was the first time where I started thinking about, like, if I learned these scales and if I learned these things, I could make up my own music. Because I didn't want to play other people's stuff. I didn't want to play what was on the sheet music. I didn't want to play the music I liked. I wanted to make the music that I liked. So all through middle school, I learned more and more. I was teaching myself, how do I play with both hands? How do I play chords? How do I play scales? And then I discovered I could buy recording equipment. And then it was sort of off to the races where I could start capturing my own music. And I started with an 8-track cassette recorder, and not an 8-track like 8 tracks, like old 8 tracks, but it was an actual like audio cassette, and you could record 8 different parts, and then you could mix it. And the recorder, I had a Yamaha MT8X, if any of you are familiar with that. But I discovered that I could start producing myself and making my own music. And the reason why I did this was because music was such a personal thing to me. Music was my escape. Music was what made me feel on top of the world, and it made me feel successful and like I somehow fit in to all of this. And then as I got older, the push was, well, what are you going to do with your music? How are you going to make money with it? How are you going to do all these things? So after high school, I went away to a recording school in Chillicothe, Ohio, the Recording Workshop. It was a 5-week music production audio engineering course. And I did that, loved it, loved being in an environment where it was people who were like-minded, creative, into the same things. It was like I had found my tribe. And all of this was when I was still living in South Dakota, and the recording workshop was in Ohio. So left South Dakota for that summer. And then when I came back, I started working in radio. And I ended up working in radio for like 7 years. And always I have had a day job with music on the side. Always. So even now. So I have a corporate job that has nothing to do with music. So for those of you watching this, I've probably talked about this maybe in some workshops or meetings before, but when people tell you, like, how are you going to turn this into something that pays your bills, and how do you do this not just for fun? How do you make money with it? I want to tell you that a lot of people out there that are telling you they're doing music full time actually have another form of income. And I'm going to be flat out with you. I could not live on what I make from music and teaching. So even though I teach for Berklee, even though I teach my own things, I have my own business, I make money from this YouTube channel, that money is gravy on top of my day job. So one of the things that I want to let you know is, if you are not able to quit your job and do music full time, like some people in your life may be telling you, or maybe your little voice in your head is telling you, that's okay. Because do you really want to all of a sudden be basing your work on whether or not you can pay the rent with it? Because the second you shift from doing this for the pleasure and the second you shift from doing this for the fun, there's a different kind of pressure that happens, and it can suck the joy out of something that used to be really fulfilling. So I fully believe that you do this on top of whatever else is paying the bills. And that's just what you do to pay the bills, right? That's not who you are. The music is who you are. The music is who I am, but my job is just what pays the bills, right? So in our society today, the second you do anything, people want you to be an influencer. They want you to push it. They want you to market it. You should buy Facebook ads. You should do all of these things. And there's all of these people on YouTube telling you that we all have a shot and we can all make $1 million a month, right? I would say that probably 80% of it is BS, because all of those people are making money by feeding on your dream, not actually doing what they're telling you to do, right? So just remember, they're making money by telling you how to make money, and then you're supposed to go out and actually make money from doing what they're telling you, right? But you're paying them that. So how does all of this apply to pulling this back to our songwriting? Well, I just think we've gotten away from doing things for fun. We've gotten away from doing things because it makes us feel good. We've gotten away from doing things because we just want to. You know, I think this hustle culture and the influencer culture is part of what is feeding this noise and this beast of mediocre work and same work that's out there, right? Everybody is gunning for less and less money that's in the industry. And sometimes I've seen people get really down on themselves and they feel like they are failing as a songwriter and they're not very good. I want to tell you that the amount of money you make with your work has nothing to do with the quality of it. So I'll say that again. The amount of money you make from your work has nothing to do with the quality of it. So I want you to think about what I'm saying here, because I'm thinking about it in real time for myself, right? And I'll tell you that even this YouTube channel, I enjoy talking to you and I enjoy the process of this, and it's another creative outlet, and it's a way for me to express myself in a different way that's still music related, but it's not actually songwriting. And it also takes me back to my radio roots, right? Like this feels a little bit like I'm hosting a kind of a radio show or a TV show. And how this all comes back is I myself get sucked into this culture of, if you have a YouTube channel, somehow you need to make $1 million with it. And you have to get subscribers and you have to get likes and views and make sure you have engagement. And are people watching your videos long enough? What are your retention numbers? And all of a sudden, it's not me anymore. It becomes about, what do I think you all want to see? And I'm trying myself to get back to a place where I am doing this for me. And then if you like it, that's the bonus. And I'm going to make things for me. And then the audience who is supposed to see it is going to see it and connect with it. And maybe that audience is 3 people, right? Maybe there's 3 people out of the millions of people that watch YouTube. Maybe my audience is 3 people, but those 3 people get me and what I'm doing. And I think that's my point for this video is when you make your art, when you make your songs, I want you to stop doing it for the external world, or at least try to stop doing it for the external world, because I'm talking like you can just snap your fingers and ignore all this stuff, because even myself, I can't, right? Like I'm working on an album, and in my head, I have this imaginary, like huge audience that I'm trying to write for and maintain, when the reality is like I have like 16 monthly listeners on Spotify, right? And if you haven't listened to my music, go find it. I'm on Spotify. Plug. But I want to get to that place again where I'm doing this for me. I'm doing it from me. I'm doing it because this is what moves me, and then it might move somebody else. And I want you to know that it's okay to do something just for fun. You don't have to worry about making money with it. You don't have to worry about where do I send this in Nashville. You know, one of the things that always bothers me is when I meet new songwriters and when I'm teaching and I ask people, what do you want to learn? One of the first things they say is, how do I pitch my songs? Not how do I improve my songs? How do I have more fun writing my songs? How do I, reach people emotionally with my songs? The first question they ask is, how do I pitch my songs? And 98.789%, the vast majority, have no clue that they're not ready to even pitch their songs. And it's our culture putting this on everything that anybody ever does, that somehow anytime you give birth to art, you somehow need to monetize it. And I think it's ruining people's mental health. I think it's ruining the art. I think it's devaluing the magic in the process, because everybody's looking to the quickest way to the dollar. I did another video on AI. Some of you, it pissed off. That's fine. There's still no such thing as an easy button, and none of us are entitled to monetization of what we do. And in fact, I would argue with you that if you are doing things only for monetization, you're doing it for the wrong reason, even if it's something that you love. Because the second you start doing something for the money, I think the magic leaves. And I think it was Quincy Jones who has a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but he said he never did anything for the money because that's when God walks out of the room. And the whole moral of the last minutes of me talking here are, let's get back to doing this for the fun of it. Because I think the magic is in the fun. And the magic is in us being who we are. And then if our work finds an audience, that's great. But we shouldn't do our work in order to please an audience. The people who are supposed to find it will find it. So if you're watching this far in, I appreciate you, and I will see you next time around.